saying, hey, guess what? We're about to go live. All right. Hi, Jeffrey. For like 2 weeks, I sit there and try and come up with the first thing I'm going to say. And like I said, you chime in and then I lose everything and my heart starts beating faster and I get excited. Thanks for being here. Welcome to 2022.
Yeah, we're here, and 2022 is also spelled like 2020 too.
2020 redundancy. Yeah. I
Yeah,
got you. But it is
2020
the
part 2, 3.
variant 2020 alpha or beta.
The next 2020 variant. I mean,
Somebody had said they discovered a new variant that is a combination of Delta and Omicron, and I had to respond. Everything you see is a combination of variants. They're all from the same family. You know what I mean?
right.
Like, you're not going to find a coronavirus that isn't like in the
You're not
family of every other one.
right. You're not gonna find it. You're not gonna find a COVID variant that doesn't incorporate something from every single one.
Right.
Um, I'm sure that there's different lineages out there. So
Mm-hmm.
they all have, bits of the original, they have bits of their parental strains. So it's entirely possible that, the parental strain for Omicron is Delta. Now, how in the hell it mutated the way that it did, it's going to be a great question for researchers.
Yeah. That's something for history. That's something for smarter people than I, that's for sure.
That's something for people that have a lot more tools and time and funding than us.
Mm-hmm. It's funny how people knock science, and then all of a sudden a revelation in science comes around, and everybody's like, "Wow, that was so obvious. How did we not know that?"
Well, there's a couple of pieces there. Like there's the, oh my God, how did we not know that? And
Mm-hmm.
then there's also my personal favorite. It's the, oh my God, we really paid somebody to confirm this.
Yeah, right.
But at the same time too, like there's scientific validity in confirming things. I forget, there was one that I was reading here not that long ago, and I'm like, wow, somebody actually paid money to have this studied and
Oh,
come up with the answer that all of us kind of sat there and go, yeah, that makes sense.
did somebody analyze the Arizona election recount?
Well, it certainly won't be cyber ninjas since they've decided to go under.
Right. Congratulations to Cyber Ninjas. That is amazing.
They're out of your home state, aren't they?
Everything bad is out of my home state.
Yeah, I mean, but in all fairness, though,
I think it is
Arizona's
though.
like the replacement Florida, man.
And Wisconsin's not far behind at this point. Man, I just keep telling myself, if these are the people that you want to cling to, go ahead. Like, the more I think about it, Donald Trump is a loser that loses and a liar that lies, and eventually a loser that lies is going to get caught as a lying loser. And so go ahead and attach yourself to him because he's just a sinking ship. If you all want to go down together, I will wave goodbye.
That's the thing. It's like, they keep trying to revisit this stuff and rehash this
Hmm.
stuff, and it's like, look, I don't know what to tell people. It's not like Maricopa County came up with the election system. That's kind of not their deal.
Right.
All of these states where all of this, bogus recount bullshit is happening. It's, the state legislatures came up with and approved all of this stuff, and then they got pissed when their party lost. It's
Right.
it's kind of like that, schoolyard bully who makes the rules to the game thinking he's gonna win it, and
Hmm.
then ends up, losing the game and then cries about how you had to be cheating. And it's like, motherfucker, I didn't know the rules any better than
Right.
you did, apparently.
If you have
One
a
of my,
shitty quarterback that does a shitty job and you lose a shitty game, guess what? It wasn't the game, it was the shitty quarterback.
and so I want to say it was, yeah, it was my buddy Adrian Fontes, the former
Hmm.
Maricopa County recorder, put out a statement where the looked like the party down there was trying, the Republican Party down there was trying to do something like they wanted to have permanent scans saved of all of the ballots, and my buddy Fontes was like, Yeah, that's kind of what I was hoping that I would be allowed to do. So, sometimes you just end up watching these dumb motherfuckers do the math wrong, but somehow get to the right answer.
Sure. Yeah.
And that's one of those things. Like when it comes to secure elections, it's something you and I have talked about. Is that there should be, you should take your ballot in or have it mailed in, however you're going to do this, but then
Hmm.
you get a printed copy back for your records. And then you've got that saved. And then if there happens to be any type of a recount situation, when somebody calls to verify your information, you've got that receipt that of how you voted, and you can go, yep,
Right.
that's my vote.
That's right. Or they can go into their system and see that it was verified. You know what I mean? They
Right,
don't even need
exactly.
to call me. That's my problem is Republicans in Washington state walking door to door to validate people's votes. That's an incredible
Well,
invasion of privacy
that's
to me, you know?
well, and that's the thing is it's not even the Republican Party. It's a bunch of people who think they are somehow, going to find the voter fraud that never existed in the first place. And
Right.
it's like, and that's one of my other favorite things is that somehow the Republican Party in Washington State is thinking that, there's some magical way that they did get beaten 2-1 in this state. And I'm like, have you been to fucking Seattle?
Yeah.
Do you know what it's like up there? I mean, don't, you can have the conversation of, is it, I mean, it's a great conversation to have, when you talk about popularity vote versus electoral vote, is the
Hmm.
fact that if all of Seattle decided to vote for a Democratic uh, governor, there's nothing the rest of the state could do because one city would
Right.
absolutely control the entire process.
That's New
There's no
York State, right? That's the
Exactly.
same thing in a lot of places. So,
Exactly. Yeah, and that's the thing is that some of these red states don't have to worry about that because the big cities vote red most of the time. It's just that Maricopa County was a rare time where it voted blue and not by much.
right.
And arguably, what we've talked about, it's not that I don't think it's that Arizona became a blue state. I think they just don't like fucking Trump.
Right.
And that
We're
if you
not we're
had a
not recounting senator votes. We're not recounting, state
Exactly.
legislator votes or attorney general votes. It's just
They
his.
didn't it wasn't down ballot blue. It was just they
Right.
didn't like Trump.
Right.
And that's the thing is that okay, that's what you're going to have that's what you're going to be up against is that, yeah, one senator from Arizona is always going to be blue and the other one's either going to be red or blue and it just really depends.
Hmm.
And
Purple.
that's been the issue for a lot of states is that they've been purple for a long time and then they went
Hmm.
red because of Trump, but then suddenly they went back to being purple. And it wasn't
Right.
because they I don't wouldn't say it wasn't because they actually went purple. I would say it's that they went purple because they don't like Trump. And if you were
Right.
to put any fucking halfway decent candidate in the GOP party that wasn't a crazy whacked out conspiracy theorist
Right.
as the fucking head that put Twitter down and didn't deal with that shit,
Hmm.
I guarantee you that the Republican Party would win, especially in the state things are now.
Agreed. I think still a majority of the Republican Party is the silent center. And I think the radicals like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert, they're the outliers that we should be like pushing back on. Like it's okay to have a fringe, but you can't have a center fringe. You know what I mean?
Right.
The fringe has to be on the outside. You can't have a legitimate conversation about anything when the fringe is in the middle just shouting their racist fucking tropes. You know what I mean?
Right. And it's hilarious, hearing Marjorie Taylor Greene get called out for saying some crazy racist bullshit from
Yeah.
other Republicans. And it's like, okay, it's about damn time. Fucking clean up your party. And it's like I've said,
Yes.
I guarantee you that if you had a fucking ticket like Romney and Liz Cheney
Oh my
running,
God. Yeah.
not only would the GOP win the vote, I guarantee you there would be a bunch of people on the Democrat side go red because the
Yeah.
Democratic Party is in a fucking sorry state. I mean,
Yeah.
when you look at what has changed since 2020, since Biden took office in 2021, in just 1 year,
Hmm.
there's a less than 1% difference than anything. And what they've pretty much done is just renamed Trump policies and have just kind of kept going with their own and they're not really addressing them. I mean, you think about it, we went from kids in cages to children in overflow facilities. It's the same fucking thing.
Well, the tariffs haven't been, there's no announcement that the tariffs have been redrawn, or,
Oh,
none of these things have
still,
changed. They're just saying, oh, we haven't gotten around to them yet because we're
still,
focused on build back better and nothing else.
and we're seeing how that's going because
Hmm.
literally we're doing nothing else.
Right.
I mean, the issue with Russia's government is still the same. The issue with China is still the same.
Yeah.
You know,
Belarus.
yeah, it's not. We got people that are, we've got the Remain in Mexico policy that's still the
Hmm.
same.
Yeah.
I mean, functionally speaking, there has been next to zero change other than, the push for vaccines and the attempt at Build Back Better. The only thing that actually has gotten done, really actually gotten done, is the infrastructure bill. And even that
Hmm.
was like a half-assed version of what they claimed they were going to do.
That was a list of pet projects they hoped to shove into Build Back Better. And then when they had to crack tank Build Back Better, they just pulled them out and passed them.
Yep.
That was somebody wanting a bridge, or Nancy Pelosi wanting a park, or anybody, Republicans included, that wanted a
Hmm.
highway. It's the same
Hmm.
thing.
Yep.
Uh, and they keep saying that if we don't pass Build Back Better, all of these people are going to be negatively affected. And I keep saying, then why not pass the bill individually? Why
Let's
not
go through it.
why not do this paid family leave alone? If it
And that's
matters that much, why does it have to go in an omnibus bill that people can easily just discount? You know what I
right.
mean?
Well, and that's one of those things where,
They don't want to
I,
do the work.
well, it's I think the best way that I can explain it is my kid arguing with me about the chore I gave them the other day. Uh, I asked them to clean out the cat box
Mm.
and didn't want to do it. It's like, okay, well, and it was a negotiation. It was, begging, pleading, trying to figure out, if there was any other way that I wouldn't have to do this right now. And,
Hmm.
at its worst, because of the stuff that I've put in place, it's a 5-minute task. And I don't even
Right.
think it's that. But they spent 20 minutes trying to avoid doing the 5 minutes of work. And that's really what this is boiled down to is that there's a bunch of things in Build Back Better that, Republicans want. Absolutely. But
Hmm.
there's a bunch of things that they don't. And rather than sit down and go, you know what? We will deal with the things that we're going to have to really negotiate on. Let's get the things that are actually going to pass passed. Because that's, unfortunately, this is one of those things. This is where the whole political theater comes in, and where the both parties do it is they lump all of this shit together, and then they won't do anything, and they sit there and they whine and they cry saying, oh, the Democrats, oh, the Republicans. And
Yep.
it's like, okay, so where is your agreement on? Well, we agree on all of these things. Okay, pull those out and fucking pass them.
Hmm. Joe Manchin's plan with problem with Build Back Better is not the size and scope, it's the time frame. Like, he
Hmm.
wants more things funded more long term than a bunch of short term things that have to be renewed if Biden wins, but they won't be renewed if he loses. And that's Manchin's whole plan. He wants sustainability in the money that he's spending. And I get that, but he doesn't say it very eloquently. He doesn't say it in a way people understand, and it leaves me even irritated, you know?
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's where the American people need to sit down and understand that it's like, look,
Hmm.
we collectively have to start pushing back against these giant omnibus bills because there's no reason why some of the stuff that, both parties want to pass
Hmm.
should be held hostage. These are things, there are things in these bills that Republicans want, but because of all the other shit that's included, they're never going to support. Okay, well then, like I said, fucking get the stuff done that you can get done,
Hmm.
and then let's have some serious negotiations on, some of the other stuff. It's like,
Yeah.
like, for example, the green energy infrastructure. It's like, look, Republicans, I get it. You got that big dick oil money that you're sucking real hard,
Yeah.
but at the same time too, this is one of those things where the Democrats are fucking this up and the Republicans are fucking this up. The Democrats need to be going, okay, big oil, we'll give you a break if you decide that you want to become big energy instead of big
Hmm.
oil.
Which they
you know,
do.
then all of these tax incentives are going to become, a priority for you. But they
Right.
don't want to do that. And instead, they just want to sit there and keep the status quo and then complain that they aren't addressing climate change. It's like,
But
there's
it's
more than one way to do this. You're just picking the wrong way to do this and then complaining that nobody wants to do anything. And it's like this idea of my way or the highway. It's like you have to
yeah.
understand that there's a way to get to the answer, and sometimes you're doing the math wrong.
I think we're all getting to the answer. I think Republicans are thinking about contributors from 20 years ago. Right now, every other commercial you see is for an electric vehicle. Every manufacturer is turning to electric. So,
Hmm.
of course, the big energy is going to also switch to electric. They're just mad that they didn't get a jump on it like everybody else. Everybody else started green technology. They fought it. They held all of these patents hostage so nobody could do anything. And now they're like, oh, we're behind in the race, but
Well,
they'll catch up. And Republicans have to understand that their contributors are going to move to this green technology they should be fans of.
well, and absolutely, and the way that Republicans need to do this is they need to sit down and go, okay, yeah, we recognize that big oil isn't going to get the same kind of incentives that they always have, but we can still figure out the incentives. Green energy investment has been incentivized,
Mm-hmm.
left and right, and they're not willing to do that incentivize plan or program for big oil as it stands. And it's like, look, there's a way to do it, and it's very simple. You just don't want to address it because you want to
Yeah.
sit there and continue to, uh, play the part of the victim. It's like, great. If
Mm-hmm.
you keep doing what you're doing, don't be surprised that you're going to keep getting what you're getting. Like, this
What
isn't really fucking hard to understand.
what we're gonna get is if Shell holds 50 patents for green technology, we're gonna see 50 offshoots. People are gonna it's going to invest. They're going to make smaller companies to innovate that technology they have. That company's going to grow, and the oil version is going to shrink. And so Shell Oil will become Shell Technologies
Hmm.
instead. And you can't just. Why would you halt that growth? It's good. It's a market that we can corner if we can just get there
It's
before everybody else.
or figure out how to get them caught up, and that's the issue.
Mm-hmm.
Is that we all know what the fucking math is. The reality is that when you incentivize, aka reduce the taxes on the level of research and development and investment in these
Right.
technologies, they're going to spend more money on these technologies. And in fact, they're going to shovel all the money that they can over to them while it's, available to them to do.
Otherwise, they'll lose it in the oil. They can stay oil and lose money every year, or they can invest it in another company that grows and shrink the loss. They can keep taking a loss as an oil company while making a profit as a technology agency, and they won't get hammered by any taxes or regulations or anything, you know?
Exactly. I mean, you have when you have the losses, it's not you're not getting taxed on it. And
Right,
if you have the incentives on the green energy side, you're not getting taxed on it. So
right.
like this is pretty simple. And unfortunately neither party seems to be willing to address this. And
But
and that's and
yeah.
that's the problem is that literally it would just take one sane voice to be like, hey, this is how we solve this problem. Let's get the work done on
That's the
it.
problem is Exxon right now is working with GM and Ford and Exxon are having conversations about how to do all this. But politics isn't involved in the conversation for some reason because we're on the edges going, no gas, no green, no gas. There's a middle ground and it's called the evolution two. you know, you
Like
can't
you
complain that you're not on level 5 yet when you didn't do level 1, 2, and 3, you know?
Exactly. And that's exactly the point is that they're just trying to skip to the conclusion,
Mm-hmm.
and like government does is if you immediately put all these bans on place on oil and gas, not only are you going to tank the economy, but you're not going to get the investment in green energy like you're hoping, and
Yeah.
then all the other parties got to do is undo your bullshit and it's back to oil. It
And then you're
doesn't
going
make
to
any
be held
sense.
hostage by Saudi Arabia. because they
Yeah.
have the oil that we need. So if we eliminate oil production here to go green, we still in the interim need gas and oil. And
Right.
so like Germany is held hostage by Russia with natural gas in the winter, we will be held hostage and our gas prices will go up. And there's no strategic reserve in the world that has enough gas to get us through more than 2 months of that.
No, and unfortunately, nobody wants to seem to wake up and recognize that.
Mm.
Meanwhile, all of these technologies either exist or are on the verge of existing. I was reading up on, one of the biggest issues that people seem to have with electric vehicles right now is the range. Well, there's a company out there that's been modding Teslas with new batteries, and they're going 750 miles. I mean, I can't get that far on a fucking tank of gas. Question is,
No,
how quickly does it charge? That's a great question. And as
right.
battery technology improves, that's going to be fine. That same battery technology can exist in your home,
Mm-hmm.
and voila, like you don't have these power outage issues because you essentially end up building microgrids.
Right. And these are the same people that bought a record player, an 8-track, a cassette tape player, CDs, digital, and then went back to record.
Hmm.
It's like, come on, people, you've paid for the advancements that we've made. It's people buying cars that creates the profit to create innovation in cars. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And that's so you're always paying for the last month's model, but we need to
Right.
get somewhere to have progress. And I
And
want to
and
be energy efficient. I don't think anybody should be beholden to any foreign country because they have something we don't, when we could have something like we could be using what we have. You know what I mean?
you got millions of actual cars out there on the road, and there's a few companies that are working on, conversion solutions to
Yeah.
take what you have and then turn it into an electric vehicle. And I think that's
Yeah.
fantastic because, I like driving my car. I love it. It's aging,
Hmm.
engine's wearing down. It's a thing that I have to think about. But, if I have fewer moving parts, I have fewer expenses.
Right. And I just want the day when autonomous cars are safe enough for me to get. That's also a scary thing because I can't afford a car and insurance. I don't know what they would charge a blind guy insurance wise to have an autonomous car drive him around, but geez, I want that day. You know what I mean?
Right. I think we all do. I mean,
Yeah,
especially for people who are having to commute, hours on end in order to get to their job.
right.
It'd be great for them to be able to, sleep or
Hmm.
whatever, enjoy themselves, a
Yep,
little bit. But, it's unfortunately until you incentivize some of this stuff, it's not going to change.
right. That's a shame. We are pretty smart, Jeffrey.
Well, we're logical.
It's logical.
That's
It's common sense. Yeah, I was thinking about Ted Cruz, not to get too far, but I was like, he might be educated, but that dude is not smart. Like,
Yeah, I made the joke to somebody after, when Ted Cruz came, once again, this is he got the right answer, but he did the math wrong.
yeah,
And then of
yeah.
course, then he goes on Tucker Carlson, begging and pleading and all this other stuff. And I'm like, I made the joke to one of my friends. I'm like, yeah, I tried to upload a clip of that interview to Pornhub, but Mrs. Cruz made me take it down because even Ted doesn't ride her dick that vigorously. You
Oh
know,
man. What the problem is Tucker Carlson is built to be right of everybody. Like you're never gonna satisfy Tucker Carlson by being right fringe. He's always gonna be more right than you. The dude is visiting Belarus. Like, he's starting a movement of Republicans holding conferences in a fucking dictatorship. Like, he's always going to be right. And so at some point, you just have to go, you know what? Fuck you, Tucker. I'm going to starve you out of content just by not addressing you. Republicans they're feeding this monster called Fox News, and they don't want to unfeed it for some reason. I don't know why. If you think CNN is biased, why wouldn't you, as a Republican, go to be the counterpoint on it? Instead of going to Fox News where you have to suck dick to lose your Senate seat. You know what I mean?
yeah, it's wild to me. Like
Mm-hmm.
that that whole segment of Fox in general, and I don't understand how,
Yeah.
you know, I wish I could understand how people could willingly go on to shows like that and argue with somebody who literally like pulls shit so far out of fucking right field that you're like,
Yeah.
I don't even know where you're getting this from, because you most people look at this kind of stuff, and especially like in the intelligence community, they'd be like, oh yeah, this is typical so and so disinformation tactics,
Mm-hmm.
and it's probably where this information's coming from. Tucker Carlson's like straight up fucking making this shit up in his own fucking head,
Uh-huh.
and people are going, yeah, that's right, and it's like, what the fuck?
It's always easier to go slightly further than the person did right before you. Without competition, you have nowhere to go. But it's easier to be to the right of Ted Cruz and call him a moderate. You know what I mean?
Right,
If you're Tucker Carlson, but you have no content, you can't raise controversy if you are left of Ted Cruz.
right.
It's not controversial. But the
Well, and
problem,
that's the outrage politics, is that,
mm-hmm,
what Tucker Carlson is he's outrage politics.
yeah,
His entire goal is just to work people up in a frenzy. And the reality is that he's not that far off from an Alex Jones. It's just
that's
that
right.
Alex Jones keeps getting banned from all of his platforms, whereas Fox News gave Tucker Carlson a platform.
Right. He's been whiteboarded. He can say whatever he wants,
Yep.
but he's not the issue. See, what I realized was like Donald Trump won because of the Electoral College, and Ted Cruz doesn't have that. Like he
Mhm.
can't rig his election, and you can't gerrymander districts in a Senate race. And Ted Cruz is like the one guy that suddenly realized his state is going purple, and the only thing keeping it red is these things, redistricting and gerrymandering and weird policies. But he knows when everybody votes, it's going to be blue and he's going to lose. And he has to go moderate. He has to say things like 1-6 was a terrorist thing, because I think it was. And he's saying the right thing to get the moderates in his district, in his state. It doesn't mean he believes it. You know what I mean? It just means he's saying it.
What you mean, a Republican or a Democrat saying things that they don't necessarily believe to get the
Uh-huh.
votes? That
Right.
doesn't that doesn't sound fucking par for the. I can't even finish that. Yeah, it does.
Republican consultants are telling um, people that want to win elections at local offices that it's a good primary thing to say that it was rigged, but you don't want to say that in a general election. You need to back off and be more moderate in a general election, which is what Ted Cruz was doing to keep his seat, to not lose the Senate. And Tucker is arguing with him. He's kind of like saying, he's calling him out on it. Ted Cruz is just trying to get to a center position to keep his party in together, and Tucker Carlson has no problem blowing that up. You know,
hmm
there's no there's
Which,
no Ted Cruz coming in the wings. If Ted Cruz loses, it's going to be a Democrat that wins. It's not going to be a more radical version of Ted Cruz in Texas. It's not going to be.
nope. And you know what? Hey, guess what? That's the way that they want to go. That's the way that they want to go. And
Uh-huh.
this will be interesting to watch play out. Because honestly, it's like Democrats don't really got a whole lot going for them 1 year in, and this has been a fucking mess.
They really don't. It seems like they have to pull Joe Biden to address anything important. You know what I mean? Like
You know,
they have to get a grumpy old man to say enough about the election rigging stuff, you know? And it's like he's mad as when he has to do it, because all he wants to do is talk about Build Back Better. He doesn't want to talk about anything else. He's blind to everything else.
mhm.
And it's
And
scary. It's
oh,
scary.
it's scary, number one, but number
Yeah.
two, it's one of the other things that you have to think about is that by not addressing some of these things, all you're doing is allowing the Republicans to bury these points.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
so far, everything's just getting buried.
Uh-huh. Because guess what? Rides to the polls, yeah, that's a racial issue, but it's also a disability issue, right? Like
Mhm.
mail-in ballot, absentee ballot, definitely a disability issue, right? Removing polling locations and drop boxes and drive through, guess who that helps? Disabled people. And so what I'm saying is, you're saying we have to protect the vote. I'm saying I've already lost my vote and you're not doing anything to get it back, and you're not protecting other people's vote as well. 45 million black people are being restricted from voting, but 49 million disabled people already have been, you know? And nobody notices, nobody's saying it, nobody's going to court saying you've restricted their reasonable accommodations, nothing like that. It's all racial, it's all civil rights, and it's starting to annoy me. But it feels like I'm in opposition to black leadership, and I don't like that. I want to be in solidarity. I want the intersectionality. I want to work with them, but it seems like it's either us or them, and I hate that.
Well, and that's where all of this has come through, is it's either
Mm-hmm.
us or them. It's just that, when you allow politics to split you into them and them and them and them and them and them and them,
When
you
you do
know,
it for them, yes.
exactly. And that's really the issue. It's like drop boxes are convenient. And here's the thing is,
Mm-hmm.
it's not even just a disability issue. You think about how many
Right,
people are working
exactly.
multiple jobs and literally don't have the time or the money to go
Mm-hmm.
stand in line at the polls in order to get their
Right.
vote counted. They
Frontline
don't have
workers.
access.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Poor people that have two, three jobs, which are also Republican, by the way. Some of the
Right.
poorest people in our country are Republican.
Yep. And so, all of these policies that they're doing in order to restrict voting rights, they think that it's going to just restrict, people from voting blue, but it's also going to really hurt people who vote red.
Yeah.
And that's just, you know what? I'll let them do that math on their own and figure that out.
Hmm.
It's not, I don't like it. And they seem to be hell bent on passing all these laws to ensure that, you know, their constituents can't vote. And
Right.
the reality is that, stop trying to restrict people from voting and come up with better fucking policy. This is not hard.
That's
Like,
right. They have no policy, right?
when you look at the issues at hand, there's some very winnable, very easy issues for Republicans to come across. For example, the way that money is spent in this country is fucking insane.
Hmm.
And, unfortunately, the piper's going to come for us one day. They're going to want their fucking check, and it's not going to be there, and it's going to be a huge problem. And yet, when they get into office, they keep running up the fucking tab and blame the Democrats. It's like, motherfucker, you did not do anything to shrink this.
Right.
You did not get rid of the debt. You made it worse and then kicked it down the road and said, "Oh, well, the Democrats." No, motherfucker, fuck you. You did this.
Yeah. The tax increases from that bill that the Republicans did with Trump are coming due this year, you know?
Mhm.
And that's what people aren't understanding. We all got tax breaks, but those were only very limited. And then the highest tier ended. So good luck with that. I don't know. I don't it seems like there was plenty of money on the money tree for the rich, but when it came time to invest in the safety net that is social, the social safety net of America, the money tree just it ran out. It was just too dry to help us.
Uh-huh.
Don't donate to politicians. Like, there's no way you're not going to get a phone call, you're not going to get a text, you're not going to get a selfie, you're not going to get a shirt, you're not going to get anything that you wanted because a corporation is going to come in and offer way more, and you're going to be lost. You're just throwing your money away. Republican, Democrat, I always say, if you want to see how loyal Trump is to you, stop giving him money, you know,
Hmm.
and then see how he acts, right? Because people just give him money and he's loyal to him because he wants the money. But the grift will end when he realizes the money does.
Oh, yeah.
And
And that's been the
that's the same
funniest
with
thing.
Elizabeth Warren. That's same with Joe Manchin. You keep donating to these people, it's murky. And I knew there was a poison pill in the Freedom to Vote Act when it said we're going to eliminate dark money and foreign money. We're going to have audits at the beginning of a campaign cycle and at the end. That's when I instantly knew Republicans wouldn't go for that bill, and
Oh,
none have.
absolutely. Absolutely. Everybody, like, that's one of the things that people need to understand is that whether or not you get to vote, they don't give a shit about. It's how they get to continue living their political lifestyle.
Right.
because everything is a fucking campaign event to them. They don't get paid shit in Congress. They have to divest themselves of their businesses. So how do they keep up earning and keep up living their lifestyle? Everything becomes a campaign event.
Ask
So that
Nancy
way you
Pelosi.
can, yep, exactly. Everything becomes a campaign event. Everything becomes, a constant stream of money to
Hmm.
them in a different way. I'm sorry, but you going to talk to a bunch of people just so that way you can have fancy dinners is not a fucking campaign event.
Right.
Especially when you're not up for fucking election. It's like, okay, you know what? Maybe there's some campaign, reform laws that need to be put in place, and that, you know,
Hmm.
that campaign finance money can only be spent 6 months prior to the election. Ooh, for this, could you imagine that? Especially like for, the reps and the senators. Oh
Yeah.
God, could you imagine how fucking freaked out they would be if they realized they couldn't fucking tap into that money and until 6 months
Yeah.
before, and then you actually have to go out and you have to actually work your ass off in order to get elected?
Mm. Or be consistent so that people know what kind of representative you are. I mean, that's the real thing. Ron DeSantis, people loved him, and now he's a piece of shit. Like people hate him in Florida. And he's been consistently Ron DeSantis, but the times have changed and he hasn't. You know what I mean?
Right.
He got COVID and was putting pictures out from 2 weeks before saying he was at events, like a ribbon cutting ceremony. And then people found that the picture was 2 weeks old, but he said he was there yesterday.
Oh no, say it isn't so. Republican
Yeah.
lying.
A
Oh God.
Republican lying. Oh my God.
At
Yeah.
this point, it's a politician lying. I don't give a shit
Hmm.
anymore. It's
But like, what did we always say? They shouldn't be able to invest in stocks and trade stocks. They should go blind, right?
hmm
Because of the inside information. And what did Nancy Pelosi say to AOC about that? No, we deserve it. Yeah, a Democrat, the leader, the most liberal person in the party says no, we should be allowed to inside trade. And 40% of Congress does it with no fines at all. It's a $200 fine if you fail to go to the ethics board. Like if they call you
Oh,
in, you know what I mean?
a two hundred
Nobody
and
wants
forty
to do
dollar
that.
fine.
Nobody wants
Oh.
to reform that stuff so that they can't make money in stocks off of the information that they have. I mean, how many invested in medical right before the pandemic because they knew it was coming when we didn't, you know? How
Divested
many,
from certain things. Yeah.
yeah, bleach, toilet paper, that's the things these people made their money on in the pandemic. That's crazy to me. And they knew it was coming, so they could do it.
Oh yeah.
Why do you think Trump hyped hydrochloroquine? It wasn't because he thought it was a cure, it's because he invested in the company that made it, you know? Same thing
hmm
with Goya beans, by the way.
That was a that was an interesting one.
Yeah. Yeah. So here I want to go on to something because I want to talk about something. So what's his name? Novak Djokovic. Have you followed any of this? The Australian tennis star is wait, he's not Australian. He wants to play in the
He's Serbian.
Australian Open. He's Serbian, but he asked for an exemption. They said no. He filed for the exemption. Some of the tennis committee let him come in, but Australia was like, we said no. So they put him in like a roach motel to wait for his hearing.
And
So
then yeah, this is one of those things where it's like I don't know what to tell people when it comes to this kind of shit.
I love it.
Every government has their rules, and the fact
Hmm.
that tennis thought that they were going to break Australia's rules. You,
Right.
we can have the discussion about what Australia's rules are like, but that's an entirely different discussion.
That's right.
But
If you
these
go to a country, you agree to their rules.
yeah, but these organizations that are trying to run roughshod over these rules, it's like, man,
Hmm.
you guys are really not that bright, are you?
Right. They told him in November, no, having COVID in the last 6 months is not good reason to not be vaccinated, you
Right.
know? And he says, well, I train different. I eat different. I work out different. I'm different than other people. I should have an exemption. And tennis was like, yeah, he should. I've loved that Australia
Meanwhile,
was like, no,
no.
if all of our people are in lockdown, no.
But that's and that's but it's typical though, is that everybody thinks they're fucking special. No, you're
Yeah.
not. It's like it don't matter how hard you fucking train, you caught COVID once. Yeah,
Mhm.
maybe it didn't do a whole lot to you. Maybe it did. Maybe you're not vaccinated. There is nothing to say that, the next time you catch COVID won't be the last time that you catch COVID.
Or you
You
won't
know,
catch it in Australia, you know what I mean? And pass it
right.
around there.
And that's really what it boils down to is that, yeah, sure, you had COVID. Great. That's lovely that you had it and you survived.
Mhm.
But as they're finding out, people who literally got Delta in November got Omicron in December.
Yeah, a guy died of having COVID twice, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I want to say in Cyprus, I was just reading about this.
Oh my God,
They were
yeah.
finding people having co-infections of Delta and Omicron.
That's what I was talking about originally, the combination of the two.
And it wasn't it was a co-infection. So it's like
Wow.
that's
It
so
wasn't
that's
one virus, it was two.
they had both of them.
Wow.
So that in and of itself is very interesting. The fact that
Yes.
you can have a co-infection, which is very concerning
Yeah, it is.
because
Yeah.
that
Ugh.
means that most likely, what I have seen, and it'll be interesting to see how well this actually plays out, is that people who got Delta could get Omicron, but people who got Omicron seem to have more antibodies that could protect against Delta.
Wow.
But this would mean that this person literally had two different people, one infected with Delta, one infected with Omicron,
Mm-hmm.
in their sphere and managed to get that co-infection. That in and of itself is terrifying because who knows what the hell that's going to look like.
I wonder if one won out eventually, if we caught him right at the beginning and then like Delta just killed Omicron or the other way around. I don't know.
I mean, what you see typically though is in terms of any type of evolution of any living thing, especially viruses,
Mm.
is that one will always win out, and there might be some remnants left over. But the reality is that most of the time you end up developing strong enough antibodies to deal with the infection from another virus.
Right.
And that's why it's the evolution, it's the variants that come after that, you're always trying to fight
Mm-hmm.
reactively.
But I always thought it would be a fresh snowstorm. I didn't realize that it would be snow on top of ice. Delta being
Yeah.
the ice and Omicron being the snowstorm, you know? Like that this stuff could pile up and we could actually get infected by multiple versions of this means that herd immunity is never going to work.
Well, and then you have what this is another one that I've seen going around is what they're calling fluoronavirus, and
Oh my God.
it's co-infections, people
Right.
getting the flu, but also getting coronavirus at the same time,
That's
and that's
possible.
and it's happening, and that's a hell of a thing.
Right.
The body's only got so much, and so if you're overwhelmed with one disease and you happen to catch another and have a co-infection,
Mm-hmm.
that's not a great day. That is something that's actually going to lend to your either struggle to recover or your ultimate convalescence.
Yeah. It was my thought that we were talking about hospitalizations of the unvaccinated, and I was imagining that that was people unvaccinated dealing with Delta while Omicron was sweeping across the country, making people sick, but not sending them to the hospital. And I thought when people were saying hospitalizations are up, I never thought that was from Omicron. I assumed that was from Delta remnants and the unvaccinated. And so I keep thinking to myself, these people are complaining about the restrictions of a pandemic while continuing a pandemic. And at some point, I just want to say, fuck you, like I'm so
No,
tired
I
of
get
it.
it. And I get it, and I want to say it too. And here's the reality is that when it comes down to, the restrictions that are being put in place right now, you know, hospitalizations are up everywhere. And
Mhm.
this kind of goes back to the conversation that we had with Dan before break, and that is that, yeah, fewer people are getting hospitalized on average, on the infection average
Right. Per
than
infection,
Delta.
per virus, whatever it
But
is. Yeah.
the number of people getting the virus is skyrocketing. So, one of Dan's concerns was is that, yeah, it may be less lethal, But
Mm-hmm.
if it's still hospitalizing people, and now you have this thing that is infecting people at a tenfold increase or hundredfold increase,
Yeah.
that's a bad day because you're not seeing fewer hospitalizations. You're seeing more hospitalizations. It's just that the average has shifted. And so
Right. The percentages increase exponentially with the infections.
the percentage has decreased, but with the number of cases, you have a much larger number to pull
Mm-hmm.
from in order to get. And so yes,
Right.
hospitalizations and deaths are going to increase.
Yeah.
Mm, it's I mean, and and this is where, a lot of people call it the good news, bad news. The good news, yeah, sure, it looks to be less severe and less lethal. But the bad news is that when you have a ton of people getting it,
Yeah.
that
All at
reduction in
once.
severity, yeah, that reduction in severity gets completely offset.
Right. During Delta, it hit like the West Coast, then the Northeast, then you guys, then down here, and then over there, then the Midwest. And it never stayed like consistent. So,
Whereas Omicron was just like,
right. But I mean, hospital staff could actually travel to these places that needed them because it wasn't always in their location, too. Omicron is everywhere all at once. And it's amazing that hospitals won't pay their nurses and the nurses then quit and become a traveling nurse, which can get paid what they were asking for. It's so weird. And it's something I just started noticing is that nurses are quitting their jobs to become traveling nurses to make the money that they wanted to stay at their position. That's so fucked up to me. you know?
well, hey, people are going to figure out how to get paid what they're worth,
Uh-huh.
especially in high stress environments.
That's right. That's right.
And if a hospital is going to have a problem with them, well, guess what? They're going to go to a different hospital and leave you short
Mm,
staffed. And that's where, trying to tell people is like, look, don't play games with this.
right.
If there is a bed open for you, and it's going to be a big if, then my hope is that there's enough staff to provide you the level of care that you need, because
Mm,
that's not necessarily going to be the case.
yeah. And they're not going to be happy staff. You know what I mean? It's not like they're
Especially,
happy to see you, staff, when they're
well,
sticking a tube down your throat.
yeah, they're not coming to visit you with that fucking long tube because it's the best day of your life.
Right. And they're going to make sure it isn't the easiest way. I'm just saying.
Well, and I mean, their goal is to make sure it's not the last day of your life. And
Uh-huh.
even then, when they're dealing with multiple people that are in that same fucking boat,
Yeah.
sorry, dude, like you ain't getting the kisses on the forehead and the cuddling. It's
Yeah.
gonna be, we're ramming this down your throat, and hope you like it.
You know,
And
I was going to have a guest on who contracted COVID over the holiday season, and Sherry is immune compromised. And so she couldn't get it. She couldn't get vaccinated. And
right,
when she went to the hospital, when she was finally so sick she had to go to the hospital, they pushed her to the side. They asked if she was vaccinated. She said no. And that was it. She couldn't even explain. They pushed her to the side. And I might have her on next week. It was just we were coming back from break and I thought
right.
we were just free flowing more. But this is a situation I wanted people to understand. There's less compassion there. And it's
Mhm.
just because it's rationing compassion. It isn't
It's
because they don't want to. It's because they just don't have the time to give it to you, you know?
it's rationing care is what it is, and the reality is that, for them, what they're doing is they're picking the people that they believe have the best odds to survive.
Uh-huh.
And those
Triage.
odds and those odds are people who are vaccinated are more likely to survive. This is something that we've talked about, is that,
Not
you know,
enough though.
no, this is something that we've talked about, is that, when it came down to vaccines, the idea was is that people who could get vaccinated got vaccinated for the people who couldn't
Mm-hmm.
get vaccinated.
That's right.
But also too, there is not a good system in place for people who medically cannot get vaccinated and
Right.
have that be identified. And that's a problem. I honestly think that's a disability issue.
Yeah. I'm trapped in my house because macular degeneration means your immune system thought there was something foreign in your eye, but it also means that my immune system can attack any part of my body, more like MS. And
Hmm.
that happens when my immune system is kicked into gear,
Right.
right? I don't know where the antibodies are going to go. And so I don't want to get COVID because I don't want to kick the antibodies up. And in fact, I probably shouldn't have gotten vaccinated, but it was a risk I took personally. But I lied to get it. Like they asked and I told them no. You know what I
Right.
mean? Because I just wanted to get the vaccine and I risked it. But I
Hmm.
can't keep risking infection like that, you know?
Well, and that's and for people who have severe reactions to vaccines,
Uh-huh.
like we've got a few friends that like any vaccine will kill them. They literally can't take anything because they're
Right.
that's how far down the list they are. And the reality is that, those people shouldn't be treated the way that they're being treated in comparison to people who just refuse to get vaccinated.
That's right.
Like, and that in and of itself is a problem. Look, you
Mm-hmm.
want to go for a religious exemption, fine, go see your priest about how do you get yourself set right for the afterlife, and
Right.
maybe
Right.
they'll have a prayer for you that hopefully works to get you through coronavirus. But
Mm-hmm.
for people who cannot get vaccinated, they still need medical care, and
Yeah.
they still need to be treated as well as possible. We don't need to triage them out. In fact, they're the ones that our medical system is meant to help them in particular.
Right. Yeah, that's
So
the safe shelter,
so
for them.
that's one of those things where it's like when it comes down to actual medical exemptions, I think that there needs to be a better system in place to help people help
Yeah,
people who really need a medical exemption
that's
get their
right.
medical exemptions. The whole reason behind vaccines was specifically meant to protect those people. And when you have policies in place, and especially in a pandemic, that triage those people out of care
Yep.
because they're getting treated as people who just refuse to get the vaccine, that's a problem.
Yeah, a real problem.
That's going to get people killed, and in a major way,
Mhm.
I really think that it is a disability discrimination.
Yeah. I
It's like
mean,
I don't give a shit. Like if you go to your priest to get an exemption for a vaccine, I'm sorry, but this is a hospital. Our priest is down the
exactly.
hall, and they're usually only there for people who are dealing with death.
That's right.
But for
Mm.
but for hospitals, it's like, look, I get it. You're going to have to pick the people who have the best chance of survival.
Yeah,
But at the same time, people need to realize that what that means is that some of their friends aren't going to get picked, at least the way
right.
things are now. And
You
that
know,
really fucking sucks.
people say the shot nearly killed me, right? Like it that I had such bad symptoms. That's just a little bit. That's not even the active virus. So if you thought you reacted really negatively but survived the vaccine, that's nothing compared to the actual virus, you know. And also these people with issues, immune compromised and such, we need these medical facilities for our everyday lives, right? Like we need to go in there for liver treatments and kidney treatments and lung treatments, and we can't get in there because you're filling the bed. Your kids are filling the beds with little tiny ventilators, keeping them alive because you don't want to get vaccinated, and it's affecting us negatively. And what I always say is like, you don't have to get vaccinated. Do what you want, but be a man about the or woman about the compromise, about what happens because of it, right? The consequences. If you're not going to get vaccinated, then live by the consequences. But it's turning out that the consequences are affecting people like me.
Well, because I was just reading. Let's hear. I want to say it was in Colorado, where a guy who quite literally just needed dialysis
Mm-hmm.
couldn't find a place to get dialysis done, and then got sick, and then couldn't get an ER bed or anything, and
Right.
ultimately ends up passing away because something that is routine and treatable couldn't be treated because they don't have the space, they don't have the room, they don't have the
Right.
personnel.
Right.
So
That's
don't know
kind of
what to,
like murder. That's
you
and
know, you've got and
terrible.
you've got multiple hospital systems going back to, the worst of the pandemic model where they've put
Mm-hmm.
off quote unquote non-emergency surgeries.
Yes.
So cancer treatments, sorry.
And you got to imagine places in Missouri or Wyoming that have no hospital system for hundreds of miles. Like outside of Tulsa, there isn't a hospital system. You know what I mean? There's a shack, there's a doctor, and you've known him your whole life. He gave birth to you.
Yeah, you got
know?
essentially it looks like, the old West. You got like a
Yeah.
little house there, and it turns out that they got like a delivery room in the back.
That's the truth. That's what it looks.
Yep.
That's what medical care looks like in rural Missouri, you know. And that guy caught COVID.
Yeah. It's like I know what that looks like, growing up in rural
Yeah.
Montana. It's like, you've got a quote unquote hospital, and it's literally like
Mhm.
one LPN, and that's it.
That's it. That's where the phrase "rub some dirt on it" came from.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's really unfortunate that this
Yes.
is we're back to this again,
Mm-hmm.
and we'll see where this goes. My hope is that, this is one of those, it's like pouring gas, it burns up really fucking fast, but then it dies down really fucking fast.
I
That would
think
be
so.
nice. And I think that is exactly what will happen. But at the same time, too, these numbers are going to get a lot fucking higher, and it's not going to be pretty.
And if Omicron leaves and Delta's still here, then that becomes the dominant again. That's all. It's not like we're going to go
And
virus
that's
free for a little while.
no,
There's always going to be overlap in the fucking snowstorm that is
yeah,
viruses.
there's always going to be people contracting the virus. That's
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately that's the reality that people need to face.
Yeah.
At some point you're going to contract the virus. I'm not saying go out and have a fucking COVID party. That's dumb as fuck. I'm
Right.
saying get vaccinated, take precautions, do what you got to do, and then when you ultimately get the virus,
Right.
you should be in a much better position because you've taken enough precautions against the virus.
Yeah. Personally, it doesn't matter if Donald Trump knows or knows not that you took it. He took
Now
it.
talk
You
about
know?
talk about a fucking weird set of scenarios there where Trump, goes on to
Oh my
talk about
God.
how the
Yeah.
vaccines were good, and literally you got people wanting to fucking remove him. I'm like,
Yeah.
but
That
we
was like weeks ago, wasn't it?
right,
Like it was like
right,
he yeah,
right
he
after
he
right
found
after our
himself
last
left of a base willing to die for him.
right. But that's the thing is you and I talked about it. Trump needed to take credit for it because
Uh-huh.
his administration cut the red tape that led to the vaccines.
Yeah,
And he got it right when he said it's like people that are dying are the people that are unvaccinated.
that's right. That's right.
It's like, dude, this is like, I hate to give credit, but you got to give credit where it's due. His administration cut the tape necessary in order to get us to the position that we're
Yeah,
in. And
I thank him for that. And I thank him for sitting out and saying something about it. You know what I mean?
right,
That means a lot to
it's
me.
and my hope is that there are people that might have questioned it who then decided, okay, you know what, this is dumb, it's time to go get my shots.
Right. This isn't the first vaccine to ever come around in history. So, I mean, I understand being skeptical of new things, but
Right.
vaccines are as old as history. You know, the Egyptians were using them. Like,
Yeah, I mean, Washington used variolation in order to get
right.
people ready for smallpox, and that variolation killed 2% of the people that were variolated.
That's right.
And that's the thing is that there was I had a healthy dose of skepticism when the vaccines first came out
Heck
because
yeah.
it was a newer technology that we were
Hmm.
using to vaccinate people for the first time. But we didn't see any sort of mass die off.
Oh no. Two
And in
billion
all
people.
honesty, yeah, and in all honesty, what you're seeing, in terms of the side effects of the vaccine, pretty much on fucking par with any other vaccine that's out there. It's a
Yeah.
calculated risk for anybody. Period. End of story.
Hmm.
But when your risk factor looks like, you have a one millionth, a 1 in 1.1,
Yeah.
1 in 1.1 million chance of having an adverse reaction
Hmm.
versus a, well,
Being a super
one in
spreader. Like,
five,
like
a 1 in 5, 1 in 10 chance of ending up, having some severe
hmm.
issues and having long haulers.
Yeah. As
I
well as
mean,
giving it to at least someone, you know.
right.
That's what sucks. Vaccinated people tend to give it to other people less, you know?
Yep.
So I don't, you know, I was going to wrap up on something that's irritating me, but oh shit. Thank you for listening to Public Access America. My name's Jason. Come back next Thursday because I had a couple things that I was going to talk about before I realized that we are at the 59-minute mark. So he's Jeffrey. I'm Jason. Check us out every Sunday on YouTube. Our live stream is noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. So I was listening to a show, and the Librarian of Congress was talking about this situation where a Massachusetts senator was sitting doing his work in the chambers, and two South Carolina senators and a Georgia senator came and blocked the doors while one South Carolina guy beat the Massachusetts senator with a cane until it broke. And it was this whole thing about how he was like a hero in the South and he was a villain in the North. But then she went on to say that people actually were buying canes so that they could go after other anti-slavery officials like Seward. And I was like, what the fuck did she just say? You know, like, and that made me really proud to know you, Jeffrey. Like, your ancestor was on a hit list for
Hmm.
being against slavery
Yep.
in 1961, and he served as
18,
secretary 18,
1860.
and he served like 1861 to 1868. He did the full term, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
But that's so cool. Like, he was on the right side of history, but we've been fighting that ever since, you know.
Well, and that's the thing is that Seward, William Henry Seward had zero tolerance for bullshit,
Mm-hmm.
and when it came to slavery, he's got some great arguments. I've got some fantastic quotes from him. Like for example, when talking about how bad slavery is, one of the things he said was is that you cannot claim to own man as property, but then claim to say that all men are the children of God. If that is the case, your argument doesn't stand. I'll have to look up some of these quotes.
Nice.
I know there was another one where
You have to go to people where the fight is. You can't fight them. That's what we don't realize these days. We stand there and go, no abortion, no abortion, yes abortion, yes abortion. Nobody meets each other where the argument is, you know. So
no.
I love the fact that he did that. He went right at their religion, you know, like this
Hmm.
is who you are, right? Then it doesn't make sense. I love doing that.
Yep, and that's and that's ultimately, you know, Lincoln won the party nomination over Seward because Seward was so vocal
Factual.
about he was so vocal about being anti-slavery. And
Good.
that's and you know what? That's I've got a long history of being like, what? I get it. This is a popularity contest and something I'm saying isn't popular. So when it came down to, him, saying a lot of these things, it was really truly because he thought the institution was disgusting. But he also was someone who saw how the world was shifting. He was watching as places like Mexico and Spain and Britain and Germany and France were moving away from slavery and flat out, outlawing it. Britain at that time had also started to create hunter ships, hunter squads, where they were literally hunting down slaver ships, and they would literally, if they would literally commandeer the ship and either arrest the crew or maybe kill them. So, I mean, at this point, slavery was so unpopular, yet the United States was holding on to it so dearly. And Seward had had enough. He had had enough for a long time. In fact, if I remember correctly, there were some quotes that I had seen from him going back to about, I want to say like the 1840s, 1830s, even maybe like the late 1830s, where he was arguing against slavery. So it was a position he had for a very long time. It wasn't like this wasn't something that he was, running, to be popular with. It was a
Right.
position that he held for a very long time.
Yeah. In those days, you weren't running to be popular on anti-slavery. You know what I mean?
And for him, it was that, you know, it was it was a hill he was willing to die on, and almost did.
Mm.
Oddly
Yeah.
enough.
He almost got beaten by a cane. You know?
He almost. Well, I know that they were the night that they killed Lincoln. They were looking for him too.
That's right. Does that remind you of anything? 1-6.
Oh wow, that painful memory
Right.
there.
And it's just amazing that he was more enlightened in 1861 than the entire Republican Party is today.
Like some of these issues, I get it. Like some of my positions are not popular, and then what, that's fine.
I don't
It's
know.
I call it family tradition to have a logical opinion on something and have it not be popular and be like,
Yeah.
fuck it, I'm willing to die on this hill.
I was amazed that I was like, how do we both stay so in the center in politics when I don't like anything about the Republican Party? And I think what pushes me to the center is the what I don't like about the Democrat Party,
No, it's really what
And
it boils down
it's
to.
me wishing Republicans went back to more of a classic Republican or
Hmm.
even a progressive Republican. We had an episode about that. Like, why is a progressive Republican out of the question? you know?
We can move the needle on a lot of things and still
Mhm.
be fiscally responsible with it. I think it's absolutely fantastic, and I think it's something that we really need to look at doing. But
Yeah.
the fact of the matter is that there's a line that they have to balance on, and a dick or two that they have to suck in order to
Yeah.
keep their popularity within the party. But the reality is that a lot of these things that the Democrats or the progressives want to do, there are things that you can absolutely do. I just don't think they got the math right on it, and I think that there's a better way to do it. And also vice versa. There are things that the Republicans want to do that the Democrats don't want to do, and I think that the Republicans got the math right on it.
Yeah.
The
I,
reality is that both of them tend to just lean on this institution of government in order to get it done,
yeah.
and it's not very good. It's the way that they're looking at it is not exactly a brilliant idea.
No, I mean, you need to bring the filibuster back to a talking filibuster because I want to see those debates in the Senate. Like, I want you to put forward paid family leave. And then I want to see the debate on it. I want to see 50 people given their chance to say something about it. And I want to vote. And then I want the people to see all of this. Like, that's the problem is they did this, they changed it, and now everything happens in a room between two people behind the scenes instead of 100 senators. That kind of sucks because now you just either have to back the norm or be opposed to it. It doesn't leave like the people giving Joe Manchin all this power aren't the Democrats, it's the Republicans. But
Mhm.
Lisa Murkowski says, hey, guess what? I'm for voting reform. And guess who loses power? Joe
Mhm.
Manchin or Kirsten Sinema. And if Mitt Romney was like, how about if we just change this and I'm on board? Guess who has power? Not Joe Manchin.
Well, and that's the thing is that you look at what the Republicans are willing to put forward, and there's some things that make sense. Like for
Mhm.
example, the electoral count, that 1887 law. And I'm watching a bunch of people on the left go, and I'm going, you wait. So they're willing to put forth an issue that they know could affect them, that
Yeah,
has affected you, and you aren't willing to take that up. You realize
right.
how insane you look. Like this is an actual really great reform to define what the role of the vice president and the Congress is, so you don't have this fucking theater that happened on 1/6.
Yeah.
You literally, your job is to just count the fucking votes that the state sent. Period. End of story.
And honestly, the Senate and House, they've passed like 20 bills. I'm estimating here. They've passed bipartisan things. It just doesn't get the news cycle. It's not going to get the news cycle to see that we're making progress at anything. It's just that we're slipping back. Oh my God, we're slipping back. Donate, watch, pay attention. Nobody
Hmm.
wants to realize this is the new normal if you're willing to accept it, you know?
Yep. And the reality is that that law makes sense, and McConnell knows that it makes sense because
Mhm.
McConnell knows that if something were to happen and the House and the Senate, were split again, but let's say vice versa, and you had a Republican coming into office, that all of a sudden this could be a royal shit show
Yeah.
where like especially with having uh Harris as the head of the Senate right now.
Uh-huh.
Could you imagine that? Could
Yeah.
you imagine the bullets that would be sweating as they would be sweating as Democrat after Democrat lined up to try and contest the election. And here's
Yeah.
the thing: is that when Donald Trump got elected, you saw that contest from representatives. The difference was,
Minimally.
but the difference was is that the Democrats, they didn't have anybody sign on to,
Mhm.
contest the results.
Right.
The issue at hand was, you know, Donald Trump lost the popular election, won the electoral college. And the issue at hand was that all of the people that were contesting the results, they weren't contesting the results of their own states.
That's right. But there's a difference between Maxine Waters venting and Ted Cruz being a part of a plan to actually accomplish something.
Oh, and then and but here's my argument is that what the Democrats did open the door for 1/6 to happen in
Oh,
terms
yeah,
of
yeah,
how
yeah.
they, it's like, look,
They began the evolution of the process that's
exactly.
going to make Joe Biden so scared that Republicans have a lock on the voting process that he himself denies the results of the next election to stay in power.
Absolutely. It absolutely created the evolution of it.
Yeah,
It's like, I get it. Nobody wanted Donald Trump, nobody with a brain cell that was firing wanted Donald Trump to win that election. And
right.
if you went based on popular vote, he did. And so I have to say to the Republican people that, have listened or watched or heard anything, it shouldn't surprise you that a person who lost the popular vote the first time around really lost the popular vote the second time around when he was doing a bunch
Right.
of dumb shit. But
Honestly, we all thought he was going to have a cabinet that would keep him in check like Ronald Reagan.
well,
He
he
might get
did.
out once in a while. He might say stupid things once in a while, but he's going to adhere to the norm of government. And Trump just didn't. He was like, I don't listen to anybody.
And that's what happened and then that's when their cabinet was always like, nah,
Yeah.
fuck it, I'm out. And you just watch this revolving door of people coming in and leaving.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the dude had more acting position heads than anybody else.
Right. Because he didn't need to get him approved that way. But he had Linda McMahon the whole time, didn't he?
Almost. I want to say almost the
Almost.
whole time.
Man, I've been watching this show, dude, and it is called The Dark Side of the Ring. And it's all about like the behind the scenes of professional wrestling. I don't know. I used to get into like wrestling when it was Hulk Hogan and Ricky the Dragon Steamboat and Jake the Snake, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
But it's so interesting. And they brought something like Donald Trump was in one of the episodes briefly when Vince McMahon became a wrestler and then Donald Trump came in and they're talking about this thing called kayfabe, which is like a circus term saying don't give away the secrets. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? And it made me just realize that Donald Trump might be disjointed from the role of president as a job because he was kayfabing the role of president. Like he went into his wrestler mode and it was an adversary and he just was so happy that his character was getting so much feedback. Like, if you look at yourself as an evil wrestler president, then yes, what he was getting he loves.
So what you're saying is that we were pretty much at a idiocracy.
Yes, but
I
it
mean,
made me also think that if Vince McMahon like wrote a script in which Donald Trump and Joe Biden got in the ring and Joe Biden won, Donald Trump might just be like, all right, you kayfabe me in the right direction.
so
You wrote me out fair and square. That's how wrestling is.
what you're saying is that we're one wrestling match away from Terry Crews as Camacho as president.
That could be. That could be.
I mean, could be worse, I suppose. I'm not sure
I just
how.
it made me realize that the persona he used as president is almost exactly the same as the persona he used in wrestling, you know? And everybody behind the scenes says Trump's a really nice guy. I don't believe it. I don't know how he could be. And like he just seems like an aggrieved, dementia-ridden old man to me personally. And that's not to knock anybody with dementia. I just think I see the signs, you know what I mean? Going backwards in your beliefs and memories and attacking people for long time things that went wrong. He's just racist because he was racist when he was 30, and his dementia brought him back there. That's my theory on him.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it's, the dude is literally a narcissist who
Mm,
loves attention, whether it's good or bad. And
yes.
so what he wants is just more. And that's pretty much all that's what his factor was.
Yeah.
It's kind of like when I would just like, something would come up and I'd be like, is this going to make for a really good story? Yeah, fuck it. Okay, I guess I'm in.
Nice.
And it's not that I really gave a shit about what I was doing. It was that I knew that it
Right.
was going to be hilarious when I told it later. Not the
Right.
best way to live your life. I'm going to tell you that right now.
I debated some guy because I was drunk for hours about libertarianism. He was like a libertarian, and I just was drunk. And I was just like, he's like, well, what do you want? And I was like, I want everyone to work for the government. And his mind exploded. Now that isn't my belief, you know what I mean? But
Right.
for an hour and a half, I just made him believe I was the most radical, weird, fucking liberal progressive on the planet. Because I can discuss things that way. I can discuss things in a conservative way or a liberal way. But it just blew his mind when I was like, well, I think everybody should work for the government, like a universal benefit. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
don't understand why you pay people that are disabled and collect data on people that are disabled and give them a hard time for not being employed, but also don't give them any mechanisms to find employment when you know everything about them. Like, I'm working for the government. They pay me every month. I could do something for them. They don't want me to because I'm disabled. That seems stupid to me. I think we should work for the government if we're going to make money off the government. I think if you're going to collect welfare, you should have a job tracing and tracking. You know what I mean?
I guarantee you, there's something out there that can be done, and
Mhm.
fuck it, why not?
Why
there's
not?
there are useful things out there that anybody can do. There just hasn't been a lot of really great work on trying to figure out what that is.
Right. Well, it's better to demonize people that don't work. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
It's pretty sad.
It
Hmm.
is.
Let's see. So I could go on to something that's been grinding my gears. Let me see.
Ooh, grind the
Oh,
gears. Find it
so,
till you grind it.
so for 2 weeks, I have been thoroughly annoyed by Rob Gronkowski and his USAA commercials. And have you seen these?
No, I really don't watch a lot of TV.
Oh, good, good. So Rob Gronkowski appears to want an USAA membership. Unfortunately, USAA only gives memberships to our military forces or members of military families. If you had an account as a military person, your son can get it. Everybody can get it except for, unless you're not military. Rob Gronkowski wants this. And there's little things in it that drives me crazy. He says, "Don't you love me, man?" to a military guy. And the guy's like, "Sure." And he's like, "Don't you think I deserve a membership?" No, no. Who are you? You're Rob Gronkowski. You never served. And there's another commercial where he tries to scam the lady on the phone, right? And she's like, "Well, we only serve military people. That's what makes us special." And Rob Gronkowski's like, "But I'm special." No, you're not. Like, how are we? Is there some way to equate like maybe a top 20 in history NFL tight end to anybody that actually served and fought and protected people from dying? Like, and should USAA even be putting him near the same level? And
This
when
is
he says
so
he's
for me.
special, is he implying that he's special in the way that's a slur to mentally diverse people? Like, there's so many things in these commercials. No, Rob Gronkowski, you're not special because you
I
could.
think uh, I think you have a very interesting analysis on it, and I have a very different analysis of
Oh,
it.
cool. Help me ease my
Um,
mind then, because it's driving me crazy.
the idea that Rob Gronkowski came up with any of this script is let's start with
That's my
that.
problem. That's my problem is that military people are putting him on the same tier, even as a joke with
Well,
our
and I think
military people.
so there's that. That's issue number one. Issue number two is that I think it's satire about that whole everybody thinks they're special, and especially when it comes
Mm-hmm.
to accessing things for the military. But I'm special.
But is it satire? Is my
It
issue.
is it is absolutely satire, and I think that it's absolutely satire, but it's directed at probably the group of people that we make fun of the most.
The elite, right?
Not the elite, the people who think that they're special and are
Mm,
like the 1/6ers.
privileged. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
and the reality is that I see where they're going with it, don't think I like the idea of where they went with it.
I don't either.
I think it's entertaining, but I think it's little questionable. Now,
Okay. Yeah, because
I
I
will
do
say
tend
this.
to analyze commercials more than I should.
I will say this is that if you're looking for the benefits of a credit union, go find a credit union. USAA is a great credit union.
Hmm. Navy
It just
Federal is a great one too.
Yeah, is USAA a bank or a credit union? I know Navy Federal is a credit union.
USAA is an insurance company, but I don't know if they
They
do
do
more than
banking.
that.
They
Okay.
do banking and stuff like
All
that too.
right. It's
Um,
just, it made me feel like Rob Gronkowski thought he was more special than people. And like, I see this veteran who's from a war, which means he had people living and dying for him and around him. And then for Gronk to go, don't you love me? Aren't I equally as special? Just made me sick to my stomach. And yeah, maybe it was scripted, but it wasn't scripted by any veteran, and it wasn't, nobody consulted Rob Gronkowski on how it might look, you know? And then the other
right,
one, I'm special. And he says it in this way, and they portray him as kind of stupid. And then so when he says I'm special, the way it hit me was I'm mentally challenged. And it just really made me irritated. Like, well, this is why I expect it, because I'm mentally diverse. I'm challenged. I don't see things the way. And it just made me, on so many levels, I just hate the commercials. I
yeah.
just
I
really
mean,
do.
I think the commercial is questionable. So no, USAA is not a credit union. They're just they're a banking service, and that has a variety of financial services
Gotcha.
directed towards military members. And
Hmm.
so here's the thing. With commercials like this, like, I get it. Like, I think the satire was is that you got a bunch of people who think that they're special. They're not.
Yeah.
The
Right.
idea, and I don't think that it was had anything to do about anybody's mental faculties in any sense of the word. I think it was more about the privilege side of things.
Yeah. I think the slur just hit
Rob
me
Gronkowski,
specially.
yeah, Rob Gronkowski has been cast to think he's special enough to have this membership,
Hmm.
and he's not,
But
because
he's always
he's
also
a
been
famous.
cast as stupid.
Well, and I think that's what's funny is that Rob Gronkowski's not a dumb dude. He just makes a lot of money off of acting like an idiot.
Really?
It's kind of like Paris Hilton. Do you remember Paris Hilton back in the day? Like,
Yeah.
all of us were like, "Oh my god, this dumb fucking blonde doing all this stupid shit."
Uh-huh.
She is not dumb.
Okay.
She knew how to make her money off of making people think she was dumb.
I would like that better, knowing that Gronk was in on the joke. I
Oh,
think that was my
Gronk is
issue.
Gronk's totally in on the joke, and that's the thing is everybody thinks he's a meathead. That dude's got money left and right. Like, when that dude
Hmm.
walked away from playing football, he did so knowing that he didn't have to do jack shit other than just fucking have fun.
Right. But you can do that being an idiot too.
Exactly, and that's the thing is that people want to think he's a moron,
Hmm.
and when he acts like a moron, people go, "Oh, gimme, 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 gimme! This is great because he's dumb meathead jock." I guarantee
Right.
you, he's all what what people don't realize about, like, the kind of people Tom Brady surrounds himself with. They're not stupid, and Tom Brady does a lot to make sure that the people he surrounds himself with aren't stupid.
Okay.
Um,
I'll believe that.
like, for example, Tom Brady, when it comes to rookies, he has a financial seminar that he does with all of the rookies that work on his team
That's smart.
to show them how, yeah, sure, he's made a ton of money doing this,
Hmm.
but he's had a lot of time in the industry and watched a lot of people make some very quick bucks and go completely fucking broke.
Oh yeah.
And so, like, he's trying to help set people up for life. Like, he's not asking for investments. He's like, "Hey, I've been
Hmm.
around this block a long time and I've gotten the chance to watch people make millions and go fucking broke. This is
Yeah.
how you avoid being another one of those statistics." Rob Gronkowski is no different. Like,
Okay.
the dude is actually really fucking smart. And he just knows how to play the dumb card because he has the look and he plays it really well. And guess what? USAA paid him a lot of fucking money to act like a moron. That
Okay.
is smart.
I think overall it's a bad look. I'm gonna
It's a
leave it
bad
at
look.
that.
I think it's a bad look for USA.
Yes.
Rob Gronkowski is capitalizing off of that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just it, is that, when Rob Gronkowski decides that he wants to do something serious, it's going to shock people because they're going to be like, wait, he's not an idiot?
Hope so. Because
Because
that's
he's
always
he's actually he's actually like he's talked about football and he's done some football analysis, and the dude's actually really smart. It's just that, like I said, he knows how to make his money. He basically took a page out of Paris Hilton's book. Paris Hilton played up the dumb blonde. Oh my God.
yeah. Nicole Richie too. Yeah.
They're fucking, but
They're
Paris Hilton
rich.
is actually, well, it's not just that they're rich. Paris Hilton's actually really fucking smart.
Mhm.
She's got some solid degrees under her belt.
Oh,
And on top of that,
I don't doubt that.
and on top of that, she's also like really well rounded in her education and her experience. She knew how to make her own money being quote unquote Paris Hilton. Oh my God, that's
Hmm.
hot. And for the longest time, I fucking hated that. And once
Me
again,
too.
Debbie, was just like, that was all an act, right? And
Hmm.
my brain stopped for a second and I went, holy shit, that makes sense. And
Yeah.
it took me a minute to really sit down and think about how this was all an act. She was getting fucking paid bank to act like a moron. Not that she was a moron. And
That's my
when I
whole
started
theory on
reading,
Trump, by the way.
I was like, oh my God, she's actually insanely intelligent.
Yeah.
This is what she did to make her own money and not have daddy's money.
Hmm.
She wanted to prove that she could make her own money.
Yeah. No, I think she's cool for that. And then she just dropped out. I don't think
Yeah.
it I don't think we
She
should
dropped away
live in.
from she dropped away from the limelight because
Mhm.
she
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 had
didn't
what she
need it.
needed.
She didn't need it anymore.
Right.
She was just like okay, I had my time, in the spotlight. Fuck it. This is great. Let's go.
But there's something disturbing about a society where a woman feels she can make more money by demeaning herself than projecting her intelligence. So I could see where you had an issue with it originally, you know what I mean? But taking advantage of stupid people, that's what America's about, you know?
Oh yeah, no, don't get me wrong. America is very good at taking advantage of people who
Yeah.
either, are, either have issues with their mental faculties or,
Hmm.
are ignorant, and we're all about that. There's no question about that. I don't.
I don't have a problem with the way Donald Trump gets his money. I have a problem with his supporters then blaming me because they're broke, you know?
Yeah. Meanwhile, you're the ones handing over money hand over fist.
Right, right. For a guy that does nothing for you. Like I said, Kentucky, 200 miles of tornado. Donald Trump didn't offer anything to those people. He didn't go and hold a rally. He didn't offer them free tickets or their money back, but he did send an email saying, "Hey, supporters, don't forget to give me money this month." And so he's disgusting. But if people want to
Mhm.
follow that, that's gross to me.
Yeah, and I mean, like, that's uh, this is one of
Ugh.
those things. Like, I have problems with the way politicians visit disaster areas. It's a fucking photo op.
Yeah.
And
And
I
it
hate,
takes resources away from where they need to be.
well, and oftentimes you're not even actually doing anything. It's kind of like
Right.
the way that I know how to describe it. The only way that I know how to describe it is like when you had all those celebrities go through poor areas of Africa, they're dressed to the fucking nines and they're like,
Uh-huh.
look at these poor people, donate your money. And it's like, motherfucker, why aren't you fucking donating some money there? You got enough money to take care of that fucking city for a while.
That's right.
Why are you telling me to donate my money? Where's your fucking mouth on this? Where's your fucking
Right.
hand on this? So yeah, to me, I don't like it. It's like, look, you can definitely have a symbolic visit, but I also think that it's got to be something like if you're going to show up there as president, you should show up there in some fucking work boots and some jeans and
Yeah.
a shirt and fucking roll up your sleeves for an afternoon and
Yes.
go talk with people, go help move stuff, help get things out of the way. I'm sure this
Hmm.
I'm sure that the Secret Service would have a fucking field day being like, "Oh, this is dangerous." It's like, look, you know what? Like, even from my perspective as a Montanan, when shit hits the fan, you go over there and you help. And that's
All
just the way
hands
that
on
it
deck.
is.
Yeah.
You know, I know that as president, he's not going to be able to clean up a fucking city in an entire day. That's just never going to be the reality. But doing something more than just like having a bunch of those, protective resources be diverted
Mhm. Yeah.
So that way he can stand in front of, so that way any president can stand in front of some blown out buildings by a tornado and be like, look at these poor people, fucking go help them. Be like, look,
Yeah.
you know what? The federal government will, send you whatever you need in order to get disaster relief. And
Right.
well, let's go roll up our sleeves and let's go do an afternoon's worth of work.
I hammered Joe Biden after that visit. I was like, why are you not throwing the paper towel at them? Why are you not throwing a paper towel at them? I mean, Trump did it. He was successful. Why is Joe Biden not doing that for the people of Kentucky? He didn't like
Look,
it. He didn't
oh,
respond.
the way that I know how to describe it is Trump threw paper towels at people. Democrats would probably grab a thing of Windex and start Windexing a blown out window on a house that's completely collapsed.
Probably. But
And
Trump
that's
was only throwing paper towel because he ran out of soup cans.
no, like there's so much that
Yeah.
you could do when you visit these locations that is actually helpful.
Hmm.
Like I don't care if it's literally standing there and fucking, handing out hot coffee to people, like pouring
Yeah.
people some hot, even just standing there pouring people fucking hot coffee so that way they can feel a little bit of warmth and sit down and talk with you while you're handing out hot coffee. That would be more valuable than just standing there in front of blown out buildings saying, oh, these people are suffering and blah, blah,
Right.
blah. And
Here's my
having all
checkbook.
of those fucking resources around you not helping. At least
Right.
stand there in a fucking dinner line and hand out dinner to people. Hand out
You
blankets.
should be tired when you're done, is what you're saying. Like
Absolutely.
if you can't accomplish the goal completely, you should be as tired as you could be at the end of your day. That's what I
Absolutely.
think.
Absolutely. Go put in go put in an actual day of service there,
Hmm.
not just a fucking photo op. I hate that
Right.
shit. I think it is fucking gross because that ultimately it gets used in, I guarantee you in about I would say starting probably about June of 2023, we're going to start seeing ads for Joe Biden, and they're going to show him standing in front of these fucking blown out buildings, and it's going to be bullshit. And
Yeah.
it's the MO of every politician. That's all it is.
Let me see your doctor's ripped. Let me see your shirt stained. Let me see your hat full of sweat. That's what I want to see.
Yeah,
And
fucking roll up your sleeves. Fucking roll up your sleeves
yeah,
and do. I don't care if you're, I don't care if you're over there like, walking with a family as they're trying to find their belongings through the rubble, or if
right.
you're standing there, and handing out blankets and emergency food and emergency water and hot coffee
Right.
and, just, at least do something.
Be tired at the end of your day. Yeah.
Just do
Don't.
something. Like
Yeah.
this is, these are things that, people have done time and time again while not
Hmm.
being a politician. When you show up to these events, actually help, actually do something.
Right. I do like the response of Kentucky. Like I'm not nailing anybody for that. Like
No,
it was all hands on deck, and I like that.
exactly.
And I mean, Donald Trump did nothing. Joe Biden at least did something as president. All I'm saying is that 40% of the country, 40% of Republicans believe that Donald Trump is still president. If you believe he's still president, then why aren't you mad that he's not acting like a president? That's kind of my point on that.
Mhm. Yeah, no, that makes
Mhm.
sense to me.
But the Rob Gronkowski thing kind of went along with our tennis star from the first hour discussion. I just split those topics up.
Hmm.
It's like I'm it was like there's this group of people that think they're special, and for some reason we keep giving them attention like there's nothing we can do with them, like they're a spoiled brat kid that we've had enough with. And then Australia was like, yeah, no. And it just was so refreshing to me to just be like, no, no, we have a line and you're not going to cross it. So those things were awesome to me. And it's nice to know Rob Gronkowski because here's the thing. I've always thought Tom Brady is awesome, right? He is like the GOAT. He is an amazing quarterback, but be spending so long doing something that you're already great at makes him not great at so many other things that he isn't great. He's average. He's really good at one thing, and we're all good at one thing. He happens to be good at throwing a football. But to hear that he actually financially plans and mentors people, that's what I like. Like, there's some really good people in football, you know,
Hmm.
and they get a bad rap sometimes. like the
Mhm.
John Grudens of the world come swooping in, and we think they're a backwards group of people, but there's a lot of good people. And to hear that
Oh,
Tom Brady is a good person on top of being a good football player, that's what makes me happy, you
yeah,
know?
and I think, and that's one of those things where the news has gotten so caught up in all of these negative stories and negative things. Like, look, don't get
Yeah.
me wrong, we do need pressure on people to look at CTE and the role of what's happening to football players
Oh,
during and
yeah.
after the game. But we also need to see that there are good things that are in the works too, like when Tom Brady's helping financially mentor people
Hmm.
into stability, so that way when the ride is over for them, whether it's after a year or 5 years or even 20, that they're on solid footing when they come out of the game. And that,
Right.
especially, you know knowing that there's going to be people that are taking advantage of them after the fact, or trying to take advantage of them after the fact.
Hmm. And we,
There's
we we forget that they don't have, like, they get their insurance through their company just like anybody else. When they
right.
retire, they don't keep getting insurance from the league. Like, they get representation from the Players Association, and they might get a pension in some small way from that for using their likeness in the years and all that kind of stuff. But no, there, I lost my train of thought on that.
It'd be nice if they, like kind of like how the armed forces have their veterans
Hmm.
department. If the
Yeah,
NFL had a veterans thing for NFL vets,
right.
because CTE is going to be a big issue for current and former NFL players. Their
Yeah.
health is going to be important, and when you have that much money running through that industry, there's no reason why, like, for specialized care after that, especially revolving around CTE.
Right.
You're going to need clinics, you're going to need care for that, you're going to need to help people, like especially people who are struggling, when they're done with the industry and they've blown their money, financial
Yes.
planning, things like that. There's plenty of ways that the NFL can do better by the people that they're making money off of.
They should generate an insurance company, the NFLIA, and just because they could collect dues, and just, wow, that would be so easy for them to do. And they need to offer insurance. It's the same thing with actors. If you notice, like, who was it? I think it was Liam Neeson. I think he got sick, and then suddenly he was in like 8 movies because they're trying to give him so many movies so that he can collect the money. You know what I mean? Like Patrick Swayze and his pancreatic cancer. It was like, uh-oh, he's got to pay for treatments. Let's get him in some movies and pay him. But it isn't like give him insurance.
Right. No,
So
it's an
are they
interesting one.
special? No, they're special for a short amount of time, but then they're destitute. And you can ask Nicolas Cage about that. You can ask Willie Nelson about that. MC Hammer. These are guys that had it all, but didn't plan for their future. So I like that Tom Brady thinks about that.
Hmm.
It's not that hard. Once a player gets $10 million, they're good. They're gone. They can live on the interest from $10 million. I learned that from ballers. You know,
Hmm.
that's what their goal. I saw a guy 5 years in the league tapped out. He was like 24 years old. He's like, "Nah, I got my 10 million. I'm done." People were mad at him. Andrew Luck, the same thing. He's like, "I got plenty of money. I'm out of here."
Right, and that's the thing, and Andrew Luck said it best, is like, who else is going to decide whether or not I walk off the field on my own 2 feet?
Right. Yeah, you have to be accountable for your own life. I told somebody, like, it's a universe thing, but God is a word that I use for everything, like real universe and everything. And I always say you're not going to be able to walk up to God and say it's his fault, like you made your own decisions. And so I respect anybody that does that,
Hmm.
honestly. Honestly. And once you make your own decision for people in the future, because a lot of people are in codependent relationships and never make a decision without validation from a partner. Once you make your own decisions, it's real hard to go back and
Hmm.
ask people for advice. My roommate's doing that right now. He's like, I like this job, but nobody really thinks they don't want me to quit, but they think I should have a better. I'm like, it's your life. They don't have to come down here and pay your bills, do what you want to do.
Right, right.
And he loves his making his own decisions now. He's not asking 14 people what he should do. He's just like, this is what I'm going to do. And he does it and it works.
Hmm.
I love that. Do you have any predictions for football? Playoffs
Nah,
are coming. Playoffs are coming.
I
Oh, you don't
really,
have a team in the race anymore, do you?
no.
Mm.
I mean, I think that it's, I think the NFC is going to be the Bucks. Um, AFC is an interesting it's an interesting race.
Yeah,
I think it could be Bucks Patriots for the Super
yeah.
Bowl.
A fresh Derrick Henry's going to be out there, though. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Mm.
So I think that could be a really interesting one, especially if Tom Brady, who's been on the receiving end of being beaten as a Patriots quarterback, goes out and beats the Patriots as an NFC quarterback. I think that would
Would
be
love that
hilarious.
if he can
I
get past
personally,
Philadelphia. Yeah, right.
yeah, I think that would be hilarious. Um,
Mm.
I think that's going to be my prediction. I mean, we all know that Tom Brady's a solid quarterback, especially in the playoffs.
Hmm.
It's rare to watch them lose out. And yeah, you know what? They haven't exactly had the prettiest seasons, but they've had good seasons.
When he
And that,
lost, it was because players were on COVID and injured. Like he didn't have
right.
anybody, you know?
Yeah, or and even in the past, when he was playing for the Patriots and when the Patriots lost out, he was missing assets left and right.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And that's been the key is that when he's missing assets, that's when he struggles.
Right.
So I honestly think though that as long as he's got a healthy bunch of assets, he'll do well. But that'll be tough. I think it'll be really tough.
I didn't want to root for the Cardinals.
Be nice to see the Cardinals get back to the Super Bowl for a
Yeah.
change.
I think
Um,
if Hopkins is healthy, that quarterback, Kyle, what's his name?
Murray,
He, Kyle Murray, Kyler,
Kyle Murray.
Kyle. I mean, I think he's really great. Like,
Oh yeah, like
you know,
it's been nice to see the Cardinals not be a laughing stock. I
yeah,
mean, I grew up used to the Cardinals just being a fucking joke.
me too.
You know, there's certain teams that there were certain teams that I was used to just them being a fucking joke. The Cardinals were one, the Browns were the
Mhm.
other.
Bears, right?
Man, it's been weird seeing the Lions be a joke. Because like, I
Yeah.
grew up with the Barry Sanders era of the Lions. Sure, they never
Uh-huh.
really did anything, but they were better than this.
Man, I was at a game trash talking Barry Sanders, and all of a sudden I got tapped on the shoulder. His whole family was behind me.
What a dick.
So I got to hang out with Barry Sanders's family. It was really kind of cool. I got to meet him, for like a minute before they all left it. Yeah, he was great. But I always said Aaron Rodgers sucks because of the division he's in. Yeah, you can win against a bunch of crappy teams, but you can't win against it. Sorry, that's my
Uh,
Aaron Rodgers rant. I don't like him.
well, Aaron
Never
Rodgers has
will.
done plenty to make himself an unlikable character.
And none of us have picked. No, none of us have picked him, and they have home field advantage. Like everybody has, the NFC has to go through Green Bay, and that's tough.
Oh yeah, going to Green Bay is tough, but that's just it though, is that uh,
Mm. It's
Aaron
all
Rodgers has
offense.
not Aaron Rodgers has not been that solid for a long time. I mean, 2010
Right.
was their Super Bowl run.
Hmm.
So I don't know. I don't think that that's going to be all that great for them.
I think it's a lot of offense and not a lot of defense, kind of like Dallas. Like
Yeah,
Dallas is misfiring on their offense, but their defense is like not that good in the secondary. And I think the same thing about Green Bay and the overall defense. But honestly, it's like a crapshoot. Like, how do you say COVID doesn't exist, but then have to watch a game where 50 players are on the COVID list? Like any team can win if a COVID storm hits. How do you handle that as a coach? How would you handle that as a coach? Do you make them isolate? Do you get them tested, make sure they're negative, and then keep them isolated?
I mean, that's the
How
thing
do
is
you
like
not protect the Andre Hopkins? How do you let that guy get COVID? You know?
I think there's literally next to no way that you're going to keep those people because you have to remember you've got all of these people that are going out home to their families. Their
Yeah,
families are all going out to go do whatever. Like
right.
especially if you got kids in school right now. Like the reality is that if COVID's coming home, it's most likely coming home with a kid. Or if you work in a service industry, if you have
Yeah.
a family member that works in a service industry, it's probably going to come home with them. And so, what are you going to do? Pay the entire family to isolate so that way you don't have to worry about your player being gone? They're never going to do that.
Good point. Better to get COVID so you don't have it. for the rest of the season, right?
Better to get vaccinated and then get COVID, and then you don't have to worry about it, hopefully, for the rest of the season.
Yeah. So what about it, Antonio Brown?
Oof.
Can we just address
I
that? I mean, he had the fake vaccine card, which are now illegal in the state of New York, but it's like, what happened? What did he do? And oh my God, is he ripped?
I you know, that is one thing where I've seen a bunch of people say if there was ever a living case of CTE that you should be looking at, it's probably Antonio Brown.
Hmm.
Because I want to say that, that he took a really hard hit one year, and I'm trying to remember what it was. He was playing for Pittsburgh. He took a really bad hit one year, and a lot of people said he wasn't the same after that.
Hmm.
And
Got
so
knocked out, didn't he?
mm,
Yeah, I remember that.
it was bad, and I mean it was bad. It was really bad. Um, so my hope is that when it comes to Antonio Brown, I know that the NFL has been willing to write off a lot of people for a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
And for both Antonio Brown's sake and the NFL's sake, I really think that the two of them need to sit down, work out a relationship where they try and do everything that they can for him. Because from all accounts that I have heard and read, it sounds like after that concussion he got in Pittsburgh, he completely changed mentally. And I think that there's something there, and that they need to really sit down and they need to look at his brain, as while he's alive, to hopefully figure out something and start to figure out something before it takes him or anybody else with it. Just depending on, because we've watched that play out time and again with CTE, where you have players who kill themselves or players who kill their family or things
Yeah.
like that. And I mean
With
that's why I really struggle right now to watch and support football, is that this CTE issue is huge, especially as somebody who's had a concussion as a kid,
hmm
playing football. Like I said, there are times where I get headaches and it feels exactly like the concussion that I had. Like I
Yeah.
know there's something there. Like because I feel its impacts still
Yeah.
to this day.
They don't go away. They just become manageable.
Right. And so luckily, like, those headaches are very few and very far between.
Yeah.
But for somebody, and I quit playing football when I was 16 after that concussion because it hurt so much and I kept having issues. So
Hmm.
to me, like, the idea that, you've got players who not only played high school but then played college, and then they have these careers
Oh
where
yeah.
every step of the way, the hits get harder and tougher and more frequent.
Mm.
you know to me, that there's such a huge issue there, that there needs to be more done, other than acknowledging it and other than just trying to update the equipment. For
Right.
example, a buddy of mine is in the military, and being around the stuff that he had TBI, and he had to go through TBI clinics in order to get himself back. From what he said, he's got himself back mostly. And I really think that that's got to be something that uh, that the football world needs to really seriously look into. Like, if you're going to keep players around, especially if you want them to be long haul players, you're going to have to figure out something in order to keep them from, ending up in really bad places.
Yeah. I saw a guy get hit in the ear hole with an elbow as another guy passed him, 15-yard penalty. But that was the quarterback that got hit. That wasn't a lineman getting knocked around. You know what I mean? So I didn't like the company line of I hope he gets the help he needs. He must be in mental distress. Like it really bugged me that like everybody was saying that. They could have just wished him the best and so tagging him with mental illness seems like they were trying to diminish um his I don't diminish who what somebody else was getting.
And
Like
that's
if he went to
Yeah.
another team, they were saying you're getting a basket case, and I didn't like that because, like you're saying, there's a reason for it, and 99% chance that it happened on the field, and
and
so
that's
you shouldn't
that's
disparage a guy that is ahead of you in being dismembered. You know what I mean?
well, and that's where it's like, but that's been the typical MO when it comes to severe
Yeah.
issues like this, is you kick the can down the road for somebody
Mm-hmm.
else to deal with. And I think, unfortunately for Antonio Brown, this was his last time down the road. Tom Brady was the one who pushed to, have someone take a chance on Antonio Brown, given all the
Yeah.
issues that he's had off the field.
Why wouldn't you? You know what I mean?
I
He's
mean,
awesome.
he was a great receiver. There's no question about it. But I don't think that there's going to be anybody else that's willing to take that chance anymore.
Yeah.
And, essentially what that has done is it's not just kicked his career down the field, it's also kicked, the issues that he's going to potentially have. And like I said, my hope is that they actually address the issues, the real issues. And that was a really shitty thing to put out there. It really was.
Yeah.
Like,
I
yes,
I just the way they
don't just hope that he gets the help that he needs.
right.
Fucking work with the NFL, work with the NFLPA, work with the teams in order to get the help that all of these players need,
Yeah.
not just Antonio Brown.
And don't air somebody's dirty laundry that way. It's easier to say I wish him the best. He's a great guy. You don't have to go into detail about what you as a quarterback and not a physician think the issue is. It just sorry. Bruce Arians was like, I didn't want to give him a chance. I gave him a chance. He's gone. And I was like, yes, thank you.
And that's just it. Bruce Arians he's got a team that's competing for a Super Bowl again.
Mhm.
He's got to do what he's got to do in order to get them there.
Yeah. But
So
I'll finish by saying if Aaron Rodgers is the MVP of football this year, I don't think I can watch football anymore because I don't think a vaccine denier deserves the right of being held to a high standard like that.
a liar, not even just a
Right.
denier, a liar. Like,
Exactly.
I'm vaccinated, I'm immune to. No, you're
Yeah.
not.
No.
No, you're not. And guess what? You got fucking COVID.
Yep. So
Clearly you're not.
I think that took him out of the running of somebody special. And I think there's so many good people. It diminishes them by saying like, Baker Mayfield seems like a really great guy. You know what I mean? Garner Minshew, that dude is awesome. Like you were saying, the guy in Arizona, awesome
Yep.
people. Like even Russell Wilson, awesome guy, happy, positive kind of guy. They're not the leaders, but like I think Ben Roethlisberger is more of a most valuable player this year,
Mhm.
and he isn't.
Yeah.
He's better than Aaron
Well,
Rodgers to
I
me.
think this is. I think I would rather be a Rob Gronkowski and everybody think I was an idiot than
Mhm.
to be an Aaron Rodgers and have all doubt removed.
To open your mouth and remove all doubt. You're
And
awesome.
that's the difference is that, everybody, people looked up to Aaron Rodgers for all the right reasons for a long time. And then,
Mhm.
he let all of that get to his head. Rob
Yeah.
Gronkowski's been like, fuck it, everybody thinks I'm dumb. I'm gonna let them think I'm dumb.
I like that. I only know it because of a Family Guy episode. Otherwise, I wouldn't know anything about the guy one way or another. You know what I mean? Until these commercials just annoys me. Well, I'm special. Shut up. Like, oh my God, there was a different way to read that line.
There was, or not have it in there altogether.
But you telling me it's purposeful makes me happy.
Yeah.
And if you get a chance, watch The Dark Side of the Ring, because there's an episode with Chris Benoit. He attacks his family, but he used to do headbutts from jumping on the ropes and then just hitting people with his head. And yeah, he had CT.
Yep,
So
he did.
so those are amazing stories, man. They really like Jake the Snake had a
That
pedophile dad, and it's like,
God, that his documentary is a rough watch.
yes.
God damn, his documentary is a rough watch, but is it so good?
And then you see him in other episodes, and it's just like he's there going, I had a chance to be tag team champion with the Ultimate Warrior, but the guy was such a douche, I never got my shot. It's like, oh my God, Jake, you had such a sad life.
And then, oh,
I just
what?
wanted to hug the guy. He
There's
was
been
my hero in the 80s.
there's been a lot of those old wrestlers that they've really come back from some crazy shit.
Yeah.
Iron Sheik has been really he's really come back.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a big thing on Twitter, you
Okay.
know. But he really struggled for a long time, and Sheiky Baby is back. Um, but
Cool.
he's very much living that. He has embraced what he was in the ring,
Hmm.
and but put it into the Twitterverse, and it's apparently it's pretty popular.
Yeah. To
So
realize these guys actually, I mean, You used to think it was this fake acting gig, but it isn't. It's so much more than that. It's like a community of people vowing secrecy to entertain people, and behind the scenes what they gave up for their art. And it's just, I have a different appreciation for these guys,
Oh,
you know?
and that was the thing about like the 80s. I mean, it was a wild time for wrestling. And all of these
Yeah,
fucking personas were just over the top. Like there was just something magical about that time in wrestling simply because
yeah.
it's like it they didn't try to go on the this is real side of the realm. Like this shit was crazy. Like,
Mhm.
the Undertaker getting power from a fucking funeral urn. Like
Yeah,
this is over the top 80s stuff and it's fucking
right.
magical. And I get why they had to go away from it because, that stuff worked for the 80s, but still
Hmm.
some of that just lives on for me
Yeah,
simply because it was so over the top.
yeah. When Macho Man and Elizabeth are like the nurturing couple in the group, you have a radical group, you know?
Right.
Oh man, that stuff is just amazing to me. I love learning about people that way. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Give that. I sounds like you've seen a couple episodes. I like it.
Oh yeah. No, I loved watching some of those old ones. Diamond Dallas Page, that's another one
Oh
where
my God,
he's
yeah.
where he's he's actively been working to help rehabilitate old some of the old wrestlers.
That's
To get them
cool.
off of to get them off the drugs and alcohol and
Hmm.
and get them back to moving around and having a life. That's been really wild to see, like especially with
Yeah.
his, what he's been doing there.
And the Owen Hart story was just, it's another one that was real hard to watch for me.
Jesus, that one was a heartbreaker.
Yeah. Ugh. But to find out they're human, that's kind of cool. That's kind of
Yep.
cool to me. So, anything you recommend? What should we do in preparation for next week? Holy cow, Jeffrey. Sorry. So I found a Twitter handle. I'm not going to tell everybody the tag because it's getting results, but I asked for informed voices and I got a lady that is studying food insecurity in New York City, and she's
Nice.
desperate to be on. And we're going to
Ooh, that'd
talk
be
to
a
her.
fun one.
We're going to have
That
a pre-interview with her this week, so she might be on next week. And I
that'd be
got
fun.
another person that's trying to evolutionize and revolutionize education, and
Ooh,
they're an award winner. And I can't wait. I just can't wait for the people that are going to be on the show this year.
ooh,
Honest.
that'll be fun.
But we are going to tackle food insecurity in a major way because I know you told me that a couple months ago that
Hmm.
that was something you wanted to focus on, and we really haven't. But I've been working my mind around how to grab onto it. You know what I mean?
Right. How do we get this to be more of a forefront, especially in a
Yeah. There's
in a
no
place like
reason
this?
people should go hungry. There's no reason that somebody can't walk into a store and get food or just have food available in their fridge. In America, there's no reason for that.
Nope.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm. A homeless person can go into Publix and Publix will feed them. So the fact that anybody has food insecurity is a real issue. That means they don't have a compassionate store around them. So,
Right.
so what should we do to prepare for next week? How about that?
Ooh, what should we do to prepare for next week? I recommend pureed hot dogs.
Mm, I love
Yuck.
that.
Honestly, like when it comes down to preparing for any week, you know, take some time for you. Think
Yeah.
about think about don't necessarily think about work. Just think about what you need to tackle in your life. What do
Hmm.
you need to find peace on? What do you need to do for you in order to, hopefully relax and get yourself into a good headspace to try and work through the week. For
Right.
me, it's always busy and like especially like going
Mm,
through the first of the year, there's a bunch of stuff that I'm always like I'm in a very busy season for
yeah.
myself, but at the same time, like making sure that I separate myself from work so that way I'm not sitting there trying to, I'm not constantly working my brain. Do something that gives your brain a break.
I like that. You don't have to pick a path. There's plenty of paths to pick. So I'm just going to say, if you want to be successful in a week, start today and you'll be more closer to where you want to be than you are right now. So, yeah. Other than that, thank you for listening to Public Access America. He's been Jeffrey. I've been Jason. And that's it. Bye. All right. Thanks, Jeffrey.
Yeah.
That I do. I'm gonna like copy and paste the note so
Hmm.
that you can read it. I haven't had a chance to read it because it's like 18